This is the education verdict. Straight questions, real answers, no fluff. Co-powered by Hop Class and Mayur School, Jaipur. Let us begin with an uncomfortable truth. Across India, when a student scores very high, we celebrate. When they become doctors, engineers, civil servants, entrepreneurs, we applaud. But when was the last time we proudly said, my child topped the board and chose to become a school teacher? Let that sit. Somewhere along the way, without announcement, teaching slipped down the aspiration ladder. Not because it lost importance, but because it lost status, financial dignity, societal prestige. We praise teachers in speeches. We honor them on Teachers' Day. We call them nation builders. Yet our policies, our pay structures, and our professional privileges tell another story. Government teachers receive structured salaries, pensions, protections. Private school teachers who educate millions of children often face lower pay, limited security, minimal benefits, shrinking professional authority. If the brightest minds stop entering classrooms, who shapes the next generation? If teaching becomes a fallback career instead of a first choice, what does that signal to society? This is not nostalgia. This is economics, policy design, professional respect, career viability. Because if top talent does not choose teaching, we do not just lose teachers, we lose learning quality, leadership depth, long-term national capability. And perhaps the hardest question of all, have we unintentionally designed a system that discourages brilliance from entering classrooms? Tonight, we examine why top talent hesitate to choose teaching and what must change if we want our schools to attract the very best. To examine this, we are joined by leaders who shape institutions every day. Aditi Misra, Director, Delhi Public School, Sector 45, Gurugram. Pritam Kumar Agarwal, Founder, Hello Kids Chain of Preschools, Bengaluru. Pooja Gupta, Co-Founder, Tinker Village, Mumbai. And Major General TPS Varaj, Director, Yadavendra Public School, Mohali. Thank you for being here. In one line, is attracting top talent into teaching becoming harder? Yes or no, and why? I'll start with you, Aditi ma'am.
Definitely yes. Like you mentioned, there are so many reasons for it. You also said that teaching has slipped down the aspiration ladder. I don't think it was at the top anyway at any point of time. I've been teaching for 40 years now. And when I chose to be a teacher, when I was in class 7 or 8, I had everybody, my classmates laughing at me. I had my cousins making fun that, why teaching? And then they gave that, slightly negative connotation, master nahi banogi kind of a thing. So it was never aspirational for a vast majority of my own school friends, of my own peers, of my own cousins, family, everybody. But I chose to be a teacher. I don't find anybody, even now, at a certain age demographic, wanting to become a teacher. And that is a worrisome trend for all of us who are in this field of education. The best minds do not want to become teachers for the past 4 decades and more.
General TPS Varaj.
Agree with Aditi ma'am. It's becoming very harder to find good teachers. There are many reasons for it. Perceptions of children are shaped at home. When parents, relatives, friends celebrate doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs, there's no mention of a teacher. So therefore, these young children, when they go to school and they come of age where you do career counseling, you talk of all careers but teaching. So I think there's a mismatch. Then you are saying teachers shape future leaders. Well, if they shape future leaders, well, they must get that status in society. Today, everybody looks at status. Very rightly what you have said, it's about dignity, it's about wages, and it's about post-retirement benefits. After all, everybody is looking at something which will give them ease of living post-retirement. So I think there has to be a perceptual shift in how we are looking at professions.
Ravi, I recall a very hard-hitting truth during one of our teacher training workshops where the teacher said that in my class of 40 kids, when I asked each of them, what's your dream and what's your aspiration and what do you want to be when you grow up? Not a single child got up and said, I want to be a teacher. And we clapped, we celebrated each child's dream. And as a teacher who's been teaching for over 30 years, she said, my heart sank. I mean, somewhere it made me feel, what's the kind of image have I projected to my own students that not a single child here feels inspired to be a teacher. Yeah. Now, having said that, you mentioned a very good point about policy change. Yeah, I think that is exactly where it has to begin before we start actually figuring out why teaching as a career is not aspirational.
For me, yes, again it is yes. Very difficult to understand as a child perspective if I give a student perspective towards the teachership. And if really I am as a teacher who is not motivated to myself, right? How can I talk about to a child? So that gaps in the system is very, very, what you call as emotional, which a teacher has it, and which is really not coming out on the stage where we understand that the perception towards us as a teacher is different. So as perception, people said difficulties, and as the platforms, we are not very motivated to be here, and that is really not taking it further.
Let's talk about what happens to a nation when its brightest minds deliberately avoid classrooms.
So, first of all, instead of nation, you think of that school where you have students and don't have enough people teaching them. So, you take people who are not in it for passion, don't have the right attitude, and you get into months of training and retraining and in-service training and hand-holding and mentoring and what have you, and you still don't get that product that comes into it with passion, with vision, with aptitude and attitude. So eventually, if you have, let me for want of a better word call a majority of reluctant teachers, you have students who are disillusioned, frankly. A passionate teacher changes the entire atmosphere of the class. The way she, not just the content, I mean, that's just one part of what a teacher does, but how she inspires children, how she motivates them, all that is out of the window. So when you have a child with multiple health issues and mental health issues, we can attribute it to the way we are dealing with tough issues in academics, dealing with their internal problems, and we have teachers who have no idea what to do with it. So that's, I mean, you can think of escalating that from a school, from a class into a school, into a society, a community, and the entire nation at one.
See, in such situations, the focus in a school shifts from a student to a teacher. Training teachers, upgrading teachers, and they are just fillers if you don't have the right quality. And like I said, the teacher can really shape the perception of a student. Now, if you are just there to earn a living and a lot of them keep moving from one school to the other, it becomes very difficult to actually educate children who will then get into society. So they are misfits. In fact, what you see today, when you see things happening on the road, you see things happening in society, is due to lack of proper education. Their understanding of how to fit into society is lacking. And I think it's very important that we have teaching as a profession where in society it is given great status, great dignity, and all the other attributes that will make it a profession which people will choose. Bright young children or students who will choose education as a profession.
Great.
The question is, if the brightest minds are avoiding the classrooms, where are the brightest minds going to? And what are the kind of jobs that are attracting the brightest minds? I mean, needless to say, the brightest minds are being lost to sectors where there is a promise, where there is hope, there is a hope for growth, there is a promise of a future. And most importantly, where there is exclusivity, where the selectivity is high, when your admission criteria are raised, the brightest minds will go where it's tough to get. Where you feel it's a leftover selection, or you can just get because you haven't gotten anywhere else, the brightest minds will never be attracted to such sectors. A case in point is, for example, in the 1970s, yeah, now today today we compare education to Finland as one of the most sought after education system. In 1970s, Finland took a very bold stance. They abolished all of the standalone teacher training colleges, and in fact, they shifted everything to the most prestigious universities in Finland offer the teacher training program. It's highly exclusive, it's very selective, and only the best minds actually want to go in for something like that. So the question here is that as a nation, as policy makers, right, what are we doing to attract brightest minds to classrooms?
So again, the same as all my panelists said, that why these talents are really not going to classrooms. They may be more aspirational to their own job, that I can do much better than what I can do inside a classroom with 20, 30, and where I may be concise to a small world. And maybe as a teacher, I may not get that space inside a school, who may not have that vision, who may not have that kind of setbacks to work much better than what I can do. So they don't want to enter to that classrooms. So that is what we are seeing on an everyday basis.
You know, who's the mentor of a student? A teacher. If you have a good teacher, that child will be attracted to that teacher, say, yes, I want to emulate and be like my teacher. And they are the ones who can really motivate them to getting into this profession of being a teacher.
Can I go on a tangent and say something? There is a saying, those who can do, those who can't teach. Nothing irritates me more. It's such an annoying statement. It's an adage and everybody seems to talk about it.
Can schools demand world-class outcome without world-class investment in teaching? Or are we expecting excellence on constrained budgets?
I mean, everybody needs money. You're working for money. You work to keep the brain active. You work for intellectual curiosity. And money is a very important determiner for many. And that's why I think for some reason it has become sort of a second job. So the joke is, my husband earns the bread, I get the butter. I don't think we can get the best minds unless this economic aspect is taken care of as well. And this concept, this idea that teachers only work from 8 to 2 is quite a mistaken notion, because teachers carry corrections home. They have paper setting, they have lessons to prepare, they make PowerPoint presentations. They do all they can to make their class more attractive for their children. A lot of teachers are retraining because it's kind of tech tools that have come up now. Some of us had no idea how to use these. So it's actually a full-time job. It's like a 8-10 hour job. Till it is taken as that and not treated as, just a half-day job, so you can get only half pay and, that's about enough. So there has to be some policy that determines, like you have fee regulating committees, you should also have salary regulating committees, that if a teacher is coming for X number of hours, irrespective of the fee the school is charging, she must get X amount of money. Whether that money is given as a grant from the state or from the government, I don't know how that works. But there has to be some stability, some surety for a teacher that she will get this money. And a case in point, when the pandemic came, there were so many schools that stopped paying the teachers or gave them half the salary or cut 25%. I think it is quite difficult to exist.
So even I feel that answer is no. So what that motivates me to work for that vision or a mission which I am looking as myself as a teacher. But very few numbers, because I comes from an early childhood background, and when you see that there are passionate educators, teachers available in that space where money is not the motive is the work. But I'll say, what percentage? Very few, not even a percent, I will say. So yes, money will definitely motivate this, and school expecting beyond standards, I don't think school can demand it.
Why do administrative officers command higher societal prestige than teachers when teachers shape the officer? I think you'll have a better answer for that, sir.
Well, unfortunately, that is how the system has been orchestrated, that authority must lie with people other than whoever is appointed to a place, government officers, the politicians, they are the ones who command authority. They are the ones who lay down rules and regulations. They want to control. It is all how the system functions. Now, we have a constitution, a very good constitution of our country, but sadly, it is not put in place in the correct way. We spoke about how teachers shape students who are going to be the future leaders of our nation. But does that teacher get that status in society? If somebody goes and says, okay, I am head of a school, I wish to put this point forward to you, nobody will give me a hearing. I go to a government office, they say, sorry, no time for you. Go to a minister, no time for you. So therefore, this perception has to change. The nation has to rise above all this to give a special status to teachers. In our old Gurukul system, the Guru was ultimate of values, of knowledge, of wisdom, of application. Our teachers are working very hard, but they're not getting their due. I think that status has to change. Of course, what Aditi ma'am said about finances, there's nothing further than the truth. Finances are very important.
I'll add one more thing over here. Everything seems to be open to debate in schools and with educators. If you have a rule for anything, for anywhere, that you won't serve alcohol, for example, in a certain space, or in an adult film, somebody below a certain age cannot enter. But in Haryana, we've got enforced the NEP, and there's an entry level age for class 1. There is a debate every week in my office. I'm threatened. I get calls. I'm asked, shall I get a false certificate? And I just glare at them, and my glare just bounces off. So in school, even as a principal, as a senior teacher, as a teacher, you are open to arguments and ridiculous suggestions, which otherwise people would obey. So why is it only for school? Why are only teachers the ones who are supposed to listen to everybody and somehow also face the flak, where actually the onus lies somewhere else? So all this, it's a very complicated thing, Ravi. I think it's not one point that only leads to it, but how has it happened that teachers have suddenly lost, or did they ever have that glamour quotient or the power quotient or whatever you may call it, or that status quotient? I don't remember them having it at all. That's the sad thing, and I still got into it because I really, really love teaching. I love being with children, and I love talking to them, and I want to find more people who want to get into it without the promise of a great
May
pay
I just
packet.
add one more issue? This conflict between a parent and a teacher. When a parent starts challenging what a teacher does or challenging what the school rules are and what it is, the status of a teacher is lowered in the eyes of the student.
Absolutely.
And that is where the conflict is. The student will play the teacher against the parent and the parent against the teacher. I think that society, if today there's a major issue is about parenting. And if that is sorted out, a lot of issues of schooling and teachers will be eradicated.
To add to your question, that why are the administrators and the policy makers given more importance versus a teacher? Unfortunately, the people who are sitting there in the boardrooms and drafting policies would have never ever spent a single day teaching in a live classroom. Be in the classroom, be in that moment of handling the situation that a teacher goes through day in and day out. And I always say this, I said teaching continues to be the toughest profession. For a woman to be up and about and ready, and presentable at 7 in the morning, when the rest of the corporate world has not even woken up, and women in corporate force get a lot more flexibility with their timings and with their routines. A teacher she can never get off the treadmill. So unfortunately, the policy makers who are sitting and drafting those policies have never ever spent a single day in school or in the classroom facing children, facing parents. The sheer number of stakeholders that a teacher has to manage, nobody has equipped her to manage those stakeholders. And she still has to do it with a smile. Because if a teacher frowns, it becomes a headline the next day in the school, oh, the teacher is such a rude teacher.
So this is how the irony is. the people, those who run it, manages it, and seen in the outside world are being given more importance than the teacher who is really working with your child on an everyday basis inside the classroom for the right cause. The right cause was studying, learning, right? So that learning has really taken over by the outside board of the management as owners and the faces of the school. So that is the irony of this country, and even we all used to it on a everyday basis now.
Why does such a wide salary gap exist between government and private school teachers? Very quick 1-2 line answers. Government school teachers' salaries and private school teachers' salaries. Can we very quickly have your quick reactions on this?
Budget constraints. The severe, stringent stipulations laid by various organizations, center, state governments on fee increase. Most of the private schools are private unaided schools. You need to have teachers who are well paid. If you have well paid teachers, they will get good teachers. But they want to control everything. They want to say, no, you cannot increase the fee. So budget constraints are a very major factor which has this pay differential between government and private schools.
Even in cases where the salary would match, in many schools we match the salaries with the government scales, and we pay the right government scale, we cut the right amount of provident fund. Even then, the absence of a pension and living accommodation is a big negative for people coming into what I call independent schools and not private schools.
Yeah, and they would do anything, they would go to any extent to get a government teaching job.
Not the...
Because of the perks, as you said, pensions and...
Yeah, but then we had those choices. I still didn't want to go there. That's another story for another day.
And the other hard-hitting truth is, Ravi, when the 5th Pay Commission and the 6th Pay Commission, when the pay commissions are released, right, all of the government administrative cadres are taken into consideration. Where is teaching as a profession taken into consideration in the pay commissions that the government releases? There is no mention of that. As ma'am said, pension is a area that is not even considered for a teacher, which means you're not even recognizing that as a profession that deserves its due importance. It's not even part of your pay commission releases anywhere. What kind of a policy are we even drafting when it comes to the teaching profession? So, in fact, I would say the gap not just between private and public is stark. Even within a private sector, I would say, why is the teacher paid the lowest? I mean, if you compare the salaries of any other private sector professional, right, even the starting salary of a new joinee in a private sector is something that a teacher after 20 or 30 years of experience would be earning that. So the gap that remains continues to remain, and that is a stark reminder. If urgently we do not address this issue, we are getting into a space where soon we will not have enough qualified teachers to who we call out as a nation builders. I mean, where will those builders be if we do not fix this problem at its grassroots level? Right? NEP talks about teacher training, right? But training is something which is only a post facto. You have to first provide for that, for the original raw stock has to be ready to receive that training. So, raw stock mein, where are we investing in that? We are talking about investments going in training, but that is a post facto.
Do you think would stricter qualification and entry norms elevate the prestige of profession or worsen shortages?
I think it will worsen shortages, definitely. Anyway, nobody wants to be a teacher. Upar se you make it more difficult to be a teacher, so let's not be a teacher then.
But it has the second side of it, of course, I mean, you won't have quality
I'm
teachers.
telling you what is being said. You have to first fix policy, you have to fix salaries, you have to fix stature, you have to fix status, prestige, respect, all of that has to be fixed first, externally. And then you may have people wanting to get into it with all its other pitfalls. There are many pitfalls. There is no other vocation except for maybe a doctor that is dealing with lives, and these are the two that are slowly falling out. There are so many people who don't, most schools would agree that they used to have 4 sections doing science with bio. It's metered down to 1.5 sections or 1 section. Nobody wants to become a doctor.
I think you're asking for too much. Itna kuch kare aapke liye, prestige bhi do.
हाँ, दो, क्यों नहीं तो पढ़ा रहे हैं. We are worrying about other people's children. Please remember, this is a woman, like ma'am said, who is not just ready at 7, she's up at 4 managing her own house and now worrying about other people's children. their marks, their preparation, their exam, their board exam. Teachers are doing puja more than the children. That I hope my kid does well. Who does that? Your neighbor couldn't be bothered about your child's doing well in the exam, but teachers pour themselves into what they are doing.
See, very relevant. You said if you have stringent selection criteria, what is the incentive? You have to put the fruit there. The incentive is very important. If the incentive is missing, no amount of selection system will get you what you want, the desired result.
Let us widen the lens. Look globally. The countries that strengthened their education system did not begin with slogans. They began with structural respect. They honored teachers through policy, not poetry. Not applause once a year, not ceremonial tributes, but tangible professional recognition. Because they understood something simple. If teachers carry the future of a nation, their dignity cannot depend on sentiment. It must be designed into the system. So here is the defining question for India. What would it take for the government to formally recognize teachers with a special professional status? Not symbolic, not ceremonial, structural. Should every teacher have access to special insurance protection, preferential loan rates, income tax relief, housing advantages? These are not perks, they are signals. Signals that teaching is not a fallback profession. It is a priority profession. And here is where the debate sharpens. Should dignity and protection apply only to government teachers? Or should private school teachers who stand before millions of children every day be equally included? If two teachers carry the same responsibility, teach the same curriculum, shape the same futures, should their respect depend on who signs their salary check? Let us confront this. Should the Indian government recognize teachers with a special professional status? You just spoke about this, General Varaj.
Absolutely. You see, unless the teacher is put at a pedestal, the profession of teaching, and equated with IT jobs, corporate jobs, industry, startups, entrepreneurs, I come back to what I made my first statement. It starts from home. When people in the family say, what are you going to do? If somebody says, I'm going to be a teacher, he said, that's all, can't you do better? So that is what the start point is. The society needs to be educated that the teachers are very special people. And unless that happens, and unless the government does something, unless society, it's a combined effort, I think it needs very serious attention. Why? India, being the most populous country, requires the maximum teachers. We have the largest number of schools, government and private. I think the teacher's status desperately needs to be put on the pedestal. And there are many ways of doing it.
To add to that, in fact, like Sir said, India being the most populous country, I'll put a point in example. Singapore did this beautifully and brilliantly well. It literally put the teachers on a pedestal where they belong. I mean, a country of that size, that tiny country, recognized its teachers. The Ministry of Education had national newspaper ad releases asking for top talent to apply for the role of being a teacher in a government school. And why? Because the reasons were given out very clear. And the reasons were, like you rightly said, it was not the sentiment driving that. It was the purpose driving that. It was the benefits that if you join the workforce of teaching, these are the benefits that the government is going to extend to you, which included preferential tax reliefs, which included preferential housing advantages. The benefits were listed so clearly for a person to sit up and take notice that it suddenly became a career of choice. It was no longer something which was seen as, I'm in my own house, not recognized for choosing teaching as a profession. Suddenly the conversation in the house shifted to family members nudging and saying, hey, listen, this is so prestigious. Why don't you apply for this position? So the conversation shifted, the sentiment shifted towards the profession. Singapore did this beautifully well. And I think we have enough case examples today as a country to follow suit. It's just a matter of now, like I said, policymakers to take note of the fact that if not now, it's already too late. Because education now, see, teachers can no longer hide behind a textbook. Today, their role has expanded to being just beyond a rote learning teacher. This teacher is being asked to make the child think. If you have to make a child think, the kind of skills that a teacher has to come to the classroom are very different than just saying, okay, I can open a book and hide myself behind that. For that level of upskilling, right, if you are not promising her the kind of benefits that makes her feel it's all worth it, where are we going to get the kind of status, and where are we going to get the kind of quality that India wants to compete in the next decade or so? And Viksit Bharat cannot land itself without a Viksit teacher or without Viksit policies for teaching.
Pritam, your take on this.
When we are talking about the school teachers, when how difficult it is to understand the pre-primary teachers in this country, right, where there is no entry barrier to that also. Even a school teacher need to have a B.Ed and M.Ed kind of thing, where a preschool teacher do not have that entry barrier. And if they are not that motivated enough with your policies, again, Viksit Bharat is not possible without that. So that will be my call into this.
My question is very simple. Should the Indian government recognize teachers with a special professional status?
Yes.
Yes, without a doubt.
We all in agreement, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Emphatic, yes.
So my next question is, should private school teachers be included in national teacher welfare schemes?
Why not? If they are part of nation building, they have to be part of national schemes.
Absolutely. After all, they're in the same profession of teaching. The stream may be different, government or private, but you're a teacher. You have to have some incentive.
Yes, definitely. How a corporate structure works as a government sector and a private sector, this same will attract the same thing, but we can definitely divide it.
Most certainly, and we have examples in front of us to learn from. So, without a doubt.
What are some perks that your school provides to your teachers besides the salaries? Do you also provide them mediclaims or medical insurances, life insurances, or is there anything else that you have added to your teachers?
Yes. To enhance their income, salaries, we give something known as performance allowance. We are matching their PF of their contribution 12%, and we match the PF. We also give a 1 month basic salary as LTA at the end of the financial year. So actually you end up with 15 basic salaries and not 12 basic salaries. So these are monetary incentives that we give. In addition to that, apart from this performance allowance, we also give something which is incentive allowance when they really, we find that they have brought up the standard of weak students to a certain level, because that is where the extra effort goes in. So you need to reward teachers for that. Apart from that, leave is a very big incentive, which if you're in the industry or corporate, you don't get that much. So we ensure that they are looked after. And we are a different category. We are a day boarding school. The teacher comes there, we take care of all their meals, refreshments, everything. So when a teacher comes and she's preparing her children, if the children are studying in school, she just comes to school. The children are taken care of, the teacher is taken care of. So, you're not thinking what you need to do back home. Sure. So these are incentives which we give so that the teacher can focus on teaching and looking after the children at school.
How about you, Aditi ma'am? You run quite a few schools across the country.
So the one thing, financially, we match the 7th pay commission completely along with the PF benefits. We don't give the basic, we give 12%. Everybody gets 6 months maternity leave and childcare leave. All of that is taken care of. Additionally, what we do in our schools, which I don't think other schools do, is if a teacher is undergoing some treatment or there's somebody in the family that needs support and she's on the verge of leaving and I can't let go of her, I allow her to come for just 2-3 hours, take her class and go away. We change the timetable so she can choose her time. She can come from morning 8 o'clock to 11, or if she prefers to come at 10 to 1, she can do that, because I don't want to lose that great talent and that great resource I have. For teachers with little children, we have opened a little creche. I don't offer support in terms of giving them human resource. They can bring their maid, but there's a little space over there. It's got some toys, it's got a TV, it's got an AC. So for a lady, if she has a child, the most difficult thing is leaving that child after 6 months and coming to school. So if the child is with her in the same building, even for reduced hours, it helps me retain the talent that I have. They also have Mediclaim, etc., not just for her, but for the entire family.
Final verdict round, and I want the answers in just one line, if not more. If you had full authority, what is the first reform you would introduce to make teaching genuinely aspirational again?
Give teachers a voice and give them the authority that parents cannot come and question what she is doing and why she is doing it.
And then the profession will become aspirational.
I think so.
General.
I think a very important aspect in today's society is financial stability, because we are veered off towards the economic world. Everybody looks at earning well and very soon. So the young bright minds will go into professions where they'll get good returns when they get a job. So I think enhancing salaries so that they don't have to look over their shoulder is a very important aspect.
If I were given the charter, I would say eradicate the most obsolete and redundant program of B.Ed. And why can't the top tier colleges in the country, universities in the country, top engineering colleges, why isn't an IIT offering a program in teaching? Why aren't our IIMs and top management institutes including a course in teaching? Why is there no bachelor's program in education being offered by the IIMs or by the IITs or the top institutes? A master's, for example. India is the only country where you can get into teaching a secondary grade even without a master's program. Why isn't master's being made mandatory for a teaching profession? I mean, it doesn't take much to make it aspirational. It's that mindset shift that is called out for, and it's time it's looked into that.
Obviously, as a special understanding to the best pay possible, which is with the financial, the most motivated part of anybody's life at this kind of career. And obviously the best in the city or best in the country, which we can definitely provide it.
Tonight's discussion brings us to a fundamental truth. No nation rises above the quality of its teachers. And the quality of teachers depends on the quality of respect we build into the system. Teaching cannot survive on goodwill alone. It needs financial dignity, career growth, professional standards, visible national commitment. If we want the brightest minds in classrooms, we must make classrooms worthy of the brightest minds. Because teaching is not just another profession. It is the profession that creates every other profession. And the question that should stay with us tonight is this: have we made teaching powerful enough to compete with every other ambitious career choice? When brilliance chooses classrooms, a nation strengthens. When it avoids them, a nation weakens quietly. That is tonight's education verdict. Straight questions, real answers, no fluff. Co-powered by Hop Class and Mayur School, Jaipur. Good night.